Hey guys, this is NATO. Someone asked me the other day about making caves in BSP, so I thought I'd put together a video because it's a lot easier to explain that way than trying to do it in text. So yeah, caves in BSP, they can be really tricky, and they can be hard to get to look good and kind of be smooth to move around. So I've got a few examples here, and then I'll go into detail about the method that I use, which is none of the ones here, but the method I use takes a lot longer and I think looks decent, but yeah, it's very time consuming. So yeah, obviously the first form of cave is basically you just do it really blocky. It's not very aesthetically pleasing to look at, but it does gets the job done. Um, the second, well, these are kind of more tunnels and caves, but it's kind of the same process. Um, Second, you take that kind of simple standard cube shape and give it a bit more of an angle to it, make it look a little bit more natural. Uh, you can then use two different subtractive brushes to just to get a little kink in it, which again just adds to the kind of more natural feel to it. If you want to, you can use more of this style and just kind of change the angles that you're using here, change where the points are. Kind of as you can see, if I switch to unlit, it might be no, it's harder to see. As you can see here, the very different angles, very different locations for these points, even though they're basically the same shape. And then they just repeat. If you want to make it look a little bit more natural, you can modify the floor level. It doesn't look too bad. I mean, it kind of reads as a cave or a tunnel or a natural formation rather than a man-made one. The only big problem with this style is that players can get kind of snagged up on these edges. If I just get a player in, you can see I can even wall slide on these because they're oops. If I can wall slide on these because they're not too. If wall slide would actually work. Uh, Now I'm just making myself look bad. There we go, briefly. But yeah, you can wall slide on these and you bump into things and they're a bit snaggy to use. Um, Even if you're just kind of dodging around, you can get snagged up on bits. It's not great. It'll do, but it's not great. Okay, so the editor crashed there, but that happens. You just brush yourself off and move on. Okay, so this method is, as I was saying, it's slightly different and it takes a little bit more time to do, but overall I think it gives a good result. Now this is gonna seem weird to start with, but it will make sense. So the basis of this method is a 3x3 grid of subtractive brushes, and this gives you basically the ability to kind of control all these points without having to worry too much about how planar things are. And this isn't too bad in this kind of view when you're dealing with one sort of axis of one axis of modification. The real problem comes in when you're trying to keep things planar over several axes, I guess, of view, as it were, of modification. So I've made just a little front piece here that looks slightly more cave-like than this. I mean, I actually think this looks alright. The only problem with these is, as I said, they get quite snaggy. But they work and they look kind of good. They're very kind of UT99, which, obviously BSP, but yeah, I wouldn't use these really, even though they look quite good. So as I was saying before, you have to keep things planar when working with this method, which essentially means moving objects or vertices together as groups, almost as if you're moving faces, or indeed actually moving faces and edges rather than singular vertices. To show you what happens when you make something non-planar, I'm just going to grab this one vertices and just shove it off the edge. As you can see, it creates this kind of horrible triangular mess, which is not what you want. You want nice quad BSP. You see we've already got a hole there. You want quadrilateral. You want squares, not triangles. See if I can actually put that back as it should be. No, because I've done a build. Basically, the engine just gets a bit confused. It doesn't really know what you're trying to tell it to do. BSP isn't very robust. It works, and it does what you want it to do, but it's not massively robust. A good trick to fix this is if you align brush vertices and then triangulate and optimize, and it'll get rid of any little holes like that. So the question you're probably asking is, how do we actually use this method to make a more natural looking cave? If we can't move things off, if we can't just grab vertices, oops, no, I don't want to do that. I want wireframe, and I want perspective, please, thank you. There we go. If we can't just grab these vertices and pull them off in any old direction because you'll get holes, then how do we actually make like a cave structure? And as I was saying, you kind of basically have to just build up detail and move things as groups rather than single vertices. So I'm actually going to completely duplicate the section I've already just made, and then go back and select the original one, and then I'm going to grab all these vertices here. Now, thinking about it, these are all the vertices that are on this side of the face. This side of the face, this side of the object. And I'm about to do something which is actually going to break it. And point if you can tell what it's going to be, but experienced BSP users will probably already know. I'm going to grab these vertices and shove them over. So I'm now moving these vertices as a group rather than just moving the one, and there we go. Okay. Now there is a problem, and I will build to show you what that problem is. It might not be too bad, but yeah, we have this slightly more natural cave opening, but then on top we have another issue with triangles. Now, this is because I'm introducing two changes in two modifications in, one modification in two axes. So basically, this face is no longer planar, which sucks because that would kind of look good. So I'm going to move this back, and this is the problem with this method. It's not that it takes time to set up these grids and extrude them out and whatever. It's just constantly going back and forth and kind of screwing up and going, oh, okay, I can't do that. Then I'll make some changes and come at this at a slightly different direction. So if I square off the top slightly, I'm in fact even going to move this in a bit, make that a little bit more extreme to start with. We want to keep this kind of grid structure for as long as possible, for as much as possible. I'm actually going to try. I've not actually tried doing a little hook like that before, so let's try that. I'm learning along with you. Okay, there we go. So yeah, again, that all works. No direct problems. Now the change that I've made, I actually need to go into. Has that got everything? Yeah, the change I've made is I've squared off this top piece here, which should, when we then move these over, I'll move these over as well, mean that we don't change this brush, this central brush. So we have three brushes in the center here. We've got one at the bottom, we've got one in the middle we can't actually select right now, and one at the top which we can. So these three brushes, including the one that's there in the middle you can't see, if it wasn't there there'd just be a giant piece of floating rock there. Because this top piece isn't changing, this is what the grid system gives you. Because this top piece isn't changing, you're not trying to impart more information onto that brush than you can handle. So we've broken this up, so we have a nice curve here, which is useful. Now, if we wanted to do a similar action to make the top of the brush extruded, we can do that. But then again, go into this problem where we create these triangles. So it's really a back and forth of trying to work out exactly what you can shift, what you can move, what you can't move. The general rule is that you'll definitely at some point want to have a flat piece So a planar piece like this somewhere. So in order to make that work and be able to shift this line here up, to be able to do that without causing issues, let's go back into front. I'm going to move this up. I'm going to duplicate all of these up. Shift these in, create an extra piece. If I want, I could also square this off, but I kind of like the slightly more rounded view. I grab these and make some changes while I'm here. Make this a bit more extreme. As you can see, I'm sort of grabbing groups of vertices rather than single individual bonds or even just faces. It might seem weird that you might seem a little unnatural to have these little flat bits, but they kind of get lost in all the rest of the detail. For reference, I don't think I'd actually go into this much detail for a shell map. If I was, I'd probably actually just throw together a quick mesh because that would probably work better. But for something if you wanted to go a little bit over what would necessarily be needed for a shell map, you can do this. So there we go. Yeah, the trick is, and this is what as I was saying, this is what the grid system actually gives you, is be able to have these central pieces. So these central pieces that have flat edges, these planar faces, to work with. So you can deform these edge pieces pretty much to your heart's content, as long as you're not introducing horrendous amounts of triangles. And then, yeah, you just kind of extend that concept as you go. I'm actually going to select. I select. No, I want to select all surfaces with the same material. Select matching material. Oh, I've not actually got anything selected because I don't have the material browser open, content browser open. And then I'll do a quick build lighting. Which should be very quick because this little scene isn't very big. This map isn't very big. So I use this myself on. Where do I use this method? I think I've got there's a small section on CTF Cliff which has this method, and I know that I don't think Clawfist uses this method. I don't think he described it like this, but this kind of method of using lots of little subtractive or additive brushes that come together to build a cohesive shape is something I've seen him do before. And yeah, that looks pretty natural, pretty sort of natural cave entrance. Okay, so I spent some time making this look a little bit better. It's using the same method. I've got. Oh, I'm in game mode, aren't I? Yeah, I've just extended the same thing out. In fact, I could actually easily keep going. Flip this round. Actually, I don't need two, I only need the one. And actually make it a proper tunnel. When discussion came through, it was phrased as caves. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have rotated it. Oh, I'm an idiot. I am a complete and utter moron. I shouldn't have rotated it because I needed it to stay in the same orientation. There we go. That's what I needed to do. Just going to pull this up here. Make that a little bit further through as well. And yeah, this is the thing. You can tweak these. You can tweak this this shape all day, really. I hide these just to make the left view slightly less confusing. So it's this end. Yeah, there we go. Then I want to shift this up. Shift that down so it matches where the floor is. Let's have a quick check the top view. Yep, there we go. And then I can build. Hide everything. So yeah, that's build lighting as well, actually. So yeah, that's how to put together a little tunnel. Now this was phrased as a how to create a cave, and kind of the method's basically the same. Um, you can create a little cap to the end. Also, I've never really tried splitting these caves off. Kind of adding an extra, if I wanted to say make a 90-degree exit through here. I've never actually tried that, but yeah, the best way of doing that probably would just be to do that again. Would be to sort of square off, make a flat section, and then just do a similar style connection. That would be kind of tricky though. You could also just get a subtractive brush and just plough through it like a train if you really wanted to. You might get some interesting angles, you might get some holes, but overall it shouldn't look too bad. As for capping off the end, that would be a little tricky. You'd probably... yeah, I don't know, you'd have to... I actually thought about that. As I said, I've only ever used this for tunnels. I never really considered it for sort of dead-ended caves, which kind of don't really want to do anyway. But there are some cases like Tuba has this kind of big open cave with a couple of doors in it, but that's kind of, you could use this method to create a kind of a cave shape. And then sorry, I'm thinking while recording, which is not a great thing to do. Yeah, but just make a general cave shape and then add entrances and stuff. So yeah, what I actually wanted to, what I started recording for again was I just wanted to mention something about this method, which is, if you look here, you have a continuous kind of shape. It's not actually dissimilar to the continuous sort of shape we had in these previous ones, especially this kind, where this sort of prism shape continues throughout the tunnel, throughout the cavey section, and that it's kind of masked. If this was a shell, I don't think anyone would really notice or care. But if you did want to change this kind of profile almost, you can. The best thing to do is select a few brushes around the area that you want to change, and then very, very carefully try to work out exactly how you want to do this. It's almost even better to do it one half and then match it up. So let's select these. Let's say we wanted to skew this slightly. I'm going to grab these two faces and I'm going to shift them over slightly. And I've already messed it up. So let's just grab in fact, let's grab the entire face. Let's grab this entire face and shift it over. Build. This is going to look weird because we've not fixed anything else, but yeah, okay. And then if we go to the top view, we can make this match it. This kind of changes what you're doing. You're essentially recreating this front section that you made before, and it's messy and it takes a lot of time. And yeah, it can actually be kind of fun, but at the end of the day, you just kind of have to think, how much time do I want to put into this as a shell? Is there a better way of doing this? And I think in this particular case, it probably would just be easier to create. If you wanted to create something this intricate as a BSP, it might just be more worth your time picking up like Blender or something really quickly and throwing together a or any other package, 3D package. Others are available. I just say Blender because it's free. It's free and actually fairly easy to use, and as long as you are throwing lightmap UVs onto things, it doesn't really make a huge difference on exactly how you set up your meshes. Coming up with or creating collision can become an issue, but that's just something you kind of have to play with and see what you can get. Yeah, you can slowly over time change the kind of profile, but it's not really worth doing. Unless you want to create like a little niche, little cut in. And having little triangular sections isn't actually that bad. I made it sound like it was absolutely awful, but the problem is when the entire sort of cave section is made out of triangular BSP, which is mostly triangular, and then it gets really unhappy, and I'll just start throwing holes all over the place. And so having one or two of these faces, one or two of these meshes, not meshes, one or two of these brushes, not faces or meshes, brushes, have one or two triangular faces is not awful. It's just something you should try and avoid in general when working with BSP. As you can see, it's just so time consuming, and like you can make things so unhappy. Like that makes me unhappy. Actually, no, I've done. Oh, I've just shifted it. I've just shifted it by accident. This is why I don't tend to work with organic shapes. They just. I'm happy enough to work with BSP. I know a lot of people get a bit shifty about it, a bit irritated that meshes are better. Meshes are much better, much faster to work in. But I mean, if you're doing something organic, then yeah, possibly something like Volcano. Then yeah, you probably just want to start off with a mesh, and then like if you're building something on top of that mesh, then maybe use BSP if it's a building. Well, something like this. I mean, if you think back, if I'm thinking back to good old UT 99, the all of Faces BSP, and that has some really organic shapes in the kind of floating island. So yeah, that's a basic overview of this kind of method. Okay, so for an example, I've come over to the now meshed up DM tuber, which this is the unmeshed version. I just wanted to show this cave off, which is, it's a cave. It reads as a cave. The space is enclosed in a cave-like, slightly organic manner. But look how simple it is. It's really just there's two big subtracting brushes, a third at the back here, just to give it a little bit more of a kink, and then we've got a couple of extruded. In fact, this one's two instead of one, and this one's an extruded one. Just to make doors. It's really, really simple. If you wanted to create, let's go over to unlit briefly. Oh god, no, that's terrible. You can't see a thing. If you go over to these kind of pillows here, you can see that they're kind of big strips, and where there's a major change in geometry, it's a new brush. These are actually big meshes. I don't actually think they were, but they are. Actually, now I think about it, yeah, they probably had to be really. So yeah, there are lots of little tricks in here, lots of little useful things. If you're gonna go digging around in content browser, this can be really useful if you're looking for older versions of things. In fact, if we open up, go into whip, the chill shell. I'm sure somewhere in here, Titan Pass shell. Yeah, this is what I was actually I was looking for before, because this has a few more cavey sections in around where the flak is, if I remember correctly. So it's always useful to look at how other level designers are actually doing it. The great thing about having all these shells is that it kind of shows you the different styles, even within Epic, of how they handle shells. You've got, Clawfist tends to do quite big, well, I wouldn't say elaborate, but pretty stylized, pretty detailed BSP work just for shells. Whereas Chris K, some of his stuff it's stylized, but it's really kind of almost down to earth and gritty. Gets the job done almost, which he might not feel that that's how it is, but it's kind of how it feels. Like if you're watching his he has a great series on YouTube, which is also posted on the UT forums, of blocking out or creating the flag run level. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Is it Lost Tomb? I think it's Lost Tomb. Yeah. creating Lost Tomb, which is really, really, it's really interesting. It's really interesting to see how he works with VSP, but he does things like which I would never do. He wanted to create a skylight, so he just created a largish, subtractive brush and just rotated it kind of angularly and shoved it in the map. And it's like, I would never do that personally, because I don't know, it just upsets my everything must be on the grid, everything must be perfect. I'm a bit anal about it, but that's just me. There's no wrong way of doing these things as long as you're not creating giant BSP holes, and as long as you're not getting messed up collision. There's no wrong way of doing it. It's just different methods, different ways of doing it. Speaking of that, this is the flak area on Titan Pass, which used to be called. Was it outside? I think it was outside. As you can see, this is actually just made up of there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9? Yeah, 9 subtractive brushes to create this little cave section. And it's really simple. It does exactly what it needs to do. It reads as a cave. Yeah, that's it. That's all it needs to do. It just needs to pass. It just needs to give the player the idea, the concept of where they are, what the environment's like. It doesn't really even need to do that for a shell. It just needs to sort of convey how tight the space is, what sort of space it is. So yeah, I mean, I use that method. I use the method I showed before, generally because it gives a kind of nice organic feel and it gives me lots of control over how the space works. So yeah, I mean, if you want to ask more questions, this video, to be honest, this video isn't particularly good. I'm kind of waffling a bit. But yeah, thank you for watching, and you can find me either on the forums or on the Discord or on IRC. I've stopped going on IRC as much, mostly because Discord's there and it's what all the cool kids are using these days. I'm an old, IRC guy, so whatever. Or you can send me PM on the forum or anything. I hope this video has been helpful. I'm aware that it's kind of a bit patchy, but oh well. I'm still kind of semi-recovering from map core, so from the map core contest. My brain's still a bit fried. So anyway, yes, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.